Howdy. On behalf of the San Antonio Family Association, I want to welcome you to another edition of San Antonio Family Association, or SAFA Educates Voters. And in this case, we are pleased and honored to have another candidate for Northeast Independent School District School Board. That is RobertStevenHilliard, who is running for District 6 for Northeast ISD. And again, we have invited all candidates to come and for these get-to-know-you conversations, one-on-one conversations in which we can be a little more lighthearted, a little more laid back, and voters can really get to know the candidates. It's all too often that voters do not know who they're voting for, and so we want to make sure that we have an informed electorate. And one of the ways we're accomplishing in this COVID-19 pandemic times is to have these one-on-one conversations. So thank you again for joining us, and we hope that you are benefit from this as well as you have others that we've recorded. And you can find more information at SanAntonioFamilyAssociation.com, San Antonio Family Association on Facebook, San Antonio Family Association on YouTube. And so this is September 14th. We are 49 days away from November 3rd, Election Day, General Election Day. And this will be a time in which it's a presidential election. There's a lot on the ballot, and this is the first time in Texas that you'll have no party voting, and where you check a box and vote straight party ticket. And besides the fact that Northeast Independent School District elections are nonpartisan, you still have to work your way all the way down the ballot. And this is one worth doing. And we hope you take the time to educate yourself and your neighbors, your family and friends, that they need to go all the way down for the protection of children in the Northeast ISD, for taxpayers, parents, and teachers as well. Please work your way all the way down the ballot. And I apologize for, there's a couple event reminders coming up, so I apologize for that. Let us, without further ado, I want to read to you why San Antonio Family Association does what it does in regards to family, society, and civil authority. The importance of the family for the life and well-being of society entails a particular responsibility for society to support and strengthen marriage and the family. Civil authority, which includes Northeast ISD, should consider it a grave duty to acknowledge the true nature of marriage and the family, to protect and foster them, to safeguard public morality, and promote domestic prosperity. And so without that, let us begin with our prayer as we do all San Antonio Family Association events, and asking for the one triune God to pour his grace upon us. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. We sit before you, Holy Spirit, conscious of our sinfulness, but aware that we gather in your name. Come to us, remain with us, and enlighten our hearts. Give us light and strength to know your will, to make it our own, and to live it in our lives. Guide us by your wisdom, support us by your power, for you are God, sharing the glory of Father and Son. You desire justice for all. Enable us to uphold the rights of others. Do not allow us to be misled by ignorance or corrupted by fear or favor. Unite us to yourself in the bond of love, and keep us faithful to all that is true. As we gather in your name, may we temper justice with love, so that all our decisions may be pleasing to you and earn the reward promised to good and faithful servants. We ask this of you who live and reign with the Father and the Son, one God, forever and ever. Amen. And if you would, let's we have our flags right behind us, and we'll stand as for pledge as we ask our children to do at school and want them to do in being patriotic. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the Texas Pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you very much. All right. Well, we are, again, privileged and honored to have with us none other than RobertStevenHilliard. And give me just one moment, everybody, and I apologize for this interruption, but I continue to get these things come up, and my glasses are not suiting me well. I apologize. And let's see if that works for us. I apologize for that, technical challenges. And so again, we're privileged to have with us RobertStevenHilliard. And Steve, if you would, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how people are you see Robert and Steve and all that. But tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Thanks, Patrick. Appreciate it. I go by Steve, which is my middle name, but Robert Steve Hilliard is how I put it on the ballot because I'm a dad, not a politician. And when I was filing the paperwork, I wasn't sure how to do it. So I had them put both on there. A big picture on me, San Antonio native. I moved here when I was 5. Father was military. Went to Northeast schools, graduated from here in the early 90s, as did my wife. Generally a very private person. And like I said, I'm a dad, not a politician. We do have 2 daughters that are in Northeast schools currently. And when I retired from the Air Force, I'm retired officer, pilot, unit commander, which leads to some of the executive experiences that I think may benefit the Board of Trustees if I were to be voted into that position. Gave us, we chose the opportunity to move back to San Antonio, and we looked around and we chose Northeast because of the great educational opportunities and experiences that we had growing up, what we hope to pass on to our kids. Other than that, moved around quite a bit in the Air Force, as most military members do, which gave us a wide variety of perspectives and experiences. And then I had the opportunity during my military career in particular to be exposed to a variety of executive and leadership courses. And I culminated that in a command tour where I had to make the decisions, which focused on asking the tough questions, getting to the heart of the issues, and using facts and reasons to be fair and equitable. But you have to ask the tough questions to really understand the issues and realize that you will not always make everybody happy, but you need to make sound, principled decisions. And that's what I would hope to bring to the Board of Trustees if I were elected.
Very good. And so how does your name read? And once you give everybody how they can contact you up front, and so they'll have that information. They can, while they're watching the video, they can do a little research on you while at the same time.
Great. So I'll do the card right here. On the ballot, it'll be Robert Steve Hilliard. I'll be the second of 3 candidates for Northeast Independent School District, single member district number 6. I have a website, www.stevefortrustee.com. I'll put it up down here, bottom center. Additionally, I also have at Facebook, it's Steve for Trustee, and on there is also an email that you can send to me, and I try to respond as reasonably fast as I can if there's any questions or inputs or ideas. I'm a big fan of not promising to have the answer, but seeking the best answer and willing to listen and then trying to identify that best answer. In District 6, there's about 40,000 registered voters. Obviously, there's lots of parents and community members, and we need to take the best ideas to help our community and have our community values reflected through the school board and in our schools for our children and all the children that are taught. Did that answer your question?
Very good.
Thanks.
Okay, so anything else about your family history or family like voters today?
Just that I have multiple siblings, and several live here in the Northeast area, and others not. One of my siblings is in education as well. So it's him and his wife. So it's always interesting to talk to them and get their perspective as well. So that's really about it. Just thankful to be back home in San Antonio, and felt like this is an opportunity for me to give back to the community in the educational system that I grew up in. If I were to be elected by the voters of the Reagan district. And just for real quick, I like visuals. Here is the map, the main green area. It's basically north of 281. Sorry, excuse me, north of 1604 and west of 281, with a little bit down here off of Blanco and Bitters near Hidden Forest Elementary, but mainly the Reagan High School cluster with a touch of the Churchill district, just for voters' awareness.
Excellent. So you mentioned a little bit about your background on your occupation, and how do you spend your time now? And
when I am not working, I spend most of my time having fun, spending time with my wife and our daughters in a variety of activities. There's a couple of different things we like to do, including playing tennis together. Our children are in different activities, so a lot of time going to and from them, but it's joyous to watch them grow and learn, have opportunities, similar to what my parents provided us growing up. That's the real joy, seeing your children having their opportunities. And then we do some fun things, visiting family and friends, cookouts, grill outs, and then vacations. Of course, we like to try and do a couple of nice vacations a year, depending on what's available.
Excellent. So tell us what you're running for and why you're running.
Obviously running for the school board, which is a nonpartisan, unpaid position. Why I'm running? I'm a dad. 10 months ago, last November, I would have thought you were crazy if you told me I would be sitting here doing an interview as a political candidate. We started looking at some things in the school district with our children as they go through and getting involved and talking with my wife. And a couple different things came up that concerned me. One of them is the middle school sexuality curriculum. It's not what people think when they hear sex ed that we grew up with, which was normally the biology, birds and the bees. This is sexuality education, and it was a great concern. And I've been working through the process, going back to it's easy to complain, it's hard to fix. And so I figured I should be willing to step up and give back if that's what people were willing to vote for. That's really what got me started down this road. And then the more we dug into things, there's lots of other concerns, systemically, I think culture-wise, and just ways for better process improvement and some fresh voices on the trustees, and that's what I would hope to bring.
Very good. And would you share with us you held up your push card there, would you share with us your campaign platforms?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks. That's a great question. So the heart of my campaign is 4 primary things. First, it's the children. That's the whole reason we have the public education system. And there are children, and it's our job to be their primary educators. And then we entrust the school system to supplement that education, and that's part of our societal contract. Second is the parents. The parents' voices in particular, I feel, have been lost or often not listened to. There's lots of different ideas I have on how we can proactively engage parents and get their feedback early and often before decisions are made at the board level. For example, the phase-in plan, there's a lot going on there. Was released very late. Parent feedback was minimal with that. More to discuss on that. But the second is parents and making sure that their voice, they're supposed to be full partners in the education process, according to Texas Education Code, Chapter 26. Interesting read for those out there. Third, the teachers and campus administration. They're the touch points with our children. That is every day they see our children and they interact with them and they get a feel for the different personalities and what they need, strengths and weaknesses. So we need to ensure they have all the resources. I'm not just talking books, pens, papers. I'm also talking about the right policies, which is one of the 4 big things the district trustees do, is ensure the right policies are in place so that we can have the proper discipline procedures in place and other related policies that make them most effective at doing their job, which is to create and spark the imagination of each of our children, have every child meet their individual maximum potential and not be so regulated and restricted from doing that. And also that's campus administration as well, which would be the principals. They need the right policy so they can effectively do their job. And last, the taxpayers. All the money that is spent in this district is from the taxpayers, which is not only the parents, but also the community members who continue to pay taxes. About half of your tax bill, most years normally, is the school, Northeast ISD school tax. For reference, Northeast last year had a $564 million budget, and the city of San Antonio, I just looked up, had a $2.9 billion budget for the fiscal year 20. So that's about you do the math on that, 1/6 of the budget is flowing through just our school district. That's a lot of money. So once again, ask the tough questions, contracts, make sure that we're seeing the bids, performance of the contractors. There's lots of times multi-million-dollar contracts are passed with no questions. Once again, on the outside, I don't know what information is provided to the trustees, but I also believe that all this information should be put up when they post the meeting 72 hours prior, not only the agenda, the entire agenda packet, and all the slides and pre-decisional briefs. The community deserves to know. Transparency is kind of underlying all of this, which I think is what has been lacking. In my opinion, parents just have tended to trust the district and the trustees to do the right thing. And I think everyone's well-intentioned, but I think the execution has been lacking in areas. Sorry, that was a long answer, but those are the 4 big things. Children, parents, teachers, and then the taxpayers, kind of undergirding all of it.
Very good. And parents do trust, and they want to trust where they're sending their children to. And the question is whether you can do that or not anymore. And so you gave some very good answers there on that. So you mentioned you weren't looking to run for office at all. You were compelled to do this, and so your aspirations for running for higher office, or is this all you're interested in?
I'm a dad, not a politician. If I were to select this, my goal would be go in and help affect change for the better and do this. And, it's a 4-year term. This one's 3.5 because of the weird timing of the election. Normally it's a May election, but I am not a politician. I had a nice, quiet, private life. Would hope to return to that. But in the interim, there are lots of children and parents whose voices aren't represented, I think. So this is my opportunity to give back to the community, which we're called to do. But after that, to answer your question, no political aspirations. Do this for 4 years. The most I could see is if there were things that need to be done another 4 years. But at some point, it's also good, I think, to have fresh voices. In the military, command tours were normally 2 years, sometimes 3, but it was that constant. You want people coming in with fresh perspectives that aren't biased. You don't you come and you do the right thing for the right reason. Do what's right, not what's easy or comfortable. And so, not a politician.
Yeah. So you have those policies, procedures to still guide you. You have new fresh perspectives.
Right. Yes.
So this might be a little redundant, basically you give some very thorough answers. What do you hope to achieve if you are elected?
So there's 4 key areas that the trustees actually do. Trustees are limited in what their authority is, but they have the ultimate oversight. Another one of my favorite things I think is really important is the hierarchy of the district. The top right here is the parents in the community. They select trustees, which hopefully will be me. After that, the trustees hire the superintendent who runs the day-to-day operations. But trustees have 4 things. They employ the superintendent, 1. 2, they approve the budget and monitor expenditures. 3, they set the tax rate and can call for bond or special elections related to that. And the last thing is the establishing the policies and procedures of the district, ensuring financial viability. So a couple things. 1, the board operating procedures. We would start there with the board meeting itself. I believe they should restructure the entire meeting. This is a small thing, but it's about putting the parents' voice first. Right now, executive session is 45 minutes before they even start the normal meeting. I believe parents should be heard at the beginning, respect their time and decision-making. This is a public service. Servant leadership is very important, in my opinion, if you're going to be one of these roles as a trustee. So we should let the parents speak first and then move from there. And appropriate also gives the trustees time to actually synthesize information from the constituents they're supposed to represent. We don't represent the district staff. We decide on their proposals and rely on their expertise and experience at a certain point. Same time as we need to ask those tough questions. The other thing is I would put a systematic review of policies in place. I would offer, if you watch any of the board meetings, when the last time a trustee asked to have an agenda item put on the next meeting, I haven't seen, I've been watching them for almost a year now. I would say we need to start a systematic approach to reviewing the policy so that every 3 or 4 years, we're looking at all the policies, making sure they're in legal compliance, they're up to date, their awareness, and if there's anything that it also is informative for the trustees to know all the policies. There's a lot of policies that belong to the board that I think even the trustees are unaware of. It's a lot to take in. So I would work on that piece. And then another big thing is the transparency communication. I think there's a lot the district could do with transparency. You hear it often at the meetings, the trustees and the superintendent, we have great transparency, which may be true for them, but it is not transparent to the parents. I think that information should be pushed. I think the weekly s'mores, all the principal emails, they should be sending it out and saying, hey, there's a regular board meeting. Here's a link to the meeting. If I were a trustee, I would be doing a quarterly newsletter that I would ask to be pushed out via all the principals in the Reagan cluster, that the area that I am representing, saying, here's what we've seen, here's what's coming up. We also need to focus on strategic planning and true thinking about what's going on. If you watch the meetings, the deliberation is not there either. That's the one other concern is the lack of deliberation, in my opinion. It's supposed to be a deliberative body. The trustees very rarely, if at all, deliberate, and then the questions are few and far between. They should be consistently asking questions of the staff and the proposals. And then I would like to hear more deliberation. Each trustee, what are your thoughts on this? What is your perspective? How does it impact your part of the district? How does it impact the district as a whole? So, long answer to your short question.
That's good. You're covering a lot of ground for us, and very thorough. And I can tell that military training has paid off for us, that we can, that people can benefit from. So, you talked a minute, and you really covered this, but I just want to make sure we're covering the same, because our educational approach, I want to make sure we're asking the same questions. For those parts, you're covering a lot of ground for it, but I want to just ask it anyway, is what about your background you think will most help you in this elected position?
Yeah, thanks. That is a great question. I think the executive leadership experience, I call it, which was from my command to running an organization where budgeting experiences, policies and procedures. We wrote our policy and procedures under the guidance of large Air Force policies, but we had local directives that I had to vet, sign off on, and we had deliberate and vigorous dialogue before anything was signed amongst the fellow crew members, team members, and squadron members in the Air Force, depending on it, for those that are familiar with the different military jargon. So that to me is critical. Also, as a commander, I had to be willing to ask the tough questions. You have to, sometimes it's going to make people a little uncomfortable, but once again, you do the right things for the right reasons. Remember why you're here and who you represent. As a trustee, you represent the community, and we're supposed to reflect community values. So we need the input from the community. We need to ensure we're sharing the information we're seeing from the district staff before we vote on anything. And then we need to make sure that we ask the tough questions, and then we want to make the tough decisions. There are some legal challenges I had to deal with in the Air Force and involved in making members of the military who made poor decisions accountable for their choices. And, you know, it's not a popularity contest, and it's not about always being loved. It's about doing the right things, being principled, reasoned, and sticking to what you know is right, not necessarily what's popular, which is always interesting because this is literally one of the things from, I find the board operating procedures. As a pilot, I like rules and regulations. You got to know what they are so that you know what you're supposed to be doing. This is under honor and conduct. I will base my decisions on fact rather than supposition, opinion, or public favor. So I think that's very important, that you have to come and be very much thoughtful in the deliberation and in the decision-making process.
Very good. All right, so what about your, so you gave us a little perspective right there, and you're anticipating, it seems like you're anticipating the question, but what's your view of the Board of Trustees? And it could be in general, the Board of Trustees, or in particular to NEISD?
I've looked, so the Board of Trustees is interesting. Like I said, about a year ago, I started looking at this. And so I think it's always important to compare and contrast because you're looking for best practices. So we've looked at Comal ISD, SAISD, Northside, some others in other parts of Texas, because there are certain laws in Texas Education Code that may not apply out of state. I'm a big fan of best practices. So there are certain things I've seen that Comal's trustees do well that I think we should consider incorporating if I would be elected and make a motion and we could get people to agree to that. It's that continuous process improvement. You need to always be focusing, how can we do better? Just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean we keep doing it that way. So that's one thing that I really focus on is what we as the board are doing, can we do better? I think that, you know, all the trustees are public servants that are currently sitting there. I don't know any of them individually. I have spoken in front of the board, and I did have a grievance hearing recently in front of them. But I think they're all trying to do what they think is best, probably, not knowing them. Having said that, as I get concerned when I look at what the board policies are and what I see on the screen. Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised, is what the board policy says they should be. I would offer that I don't think that's happening. I also think the deliberation is severely lacking currently. And I also think the questions are not insightful enough. And that's another concern for me. The phase-in plan. One of the trustees was going down a good road, I thought, asking about the metrics. There's 3 from the city and 3 the district's going to use, but there was no numbers. And he started going down this road, and they go, well, that's a good question, Mr. So-and-so. And then he stopped, they didn't push. And they kind of gave this, well, we don't want to put too much on it. No, parents need to have a definitive plan. It needs to be something that can stand. We don't need the moving goalposts with the phase-in plan because it's already creating a lot of angst and concern amongst the community. And for those that watch the Facebook page of Northeast ISD, you'll see there's lots of different perspectives on that. But we need some planning, right? Families have jobs, responsibilities, daycare considerations, all those things. They need to keep digging deeper and deeper. So I think that more substantive questions and more challenging questions need to be asked by the trustees, at least at Northeast ISD. It seems that the district proposes, the trustees approve, and that's a concern to me all the time.
And you're saying the district proposes, board approves, and you're saying there's a lack of deliberation?
The lack of deliberation, especially amongst the trustees, because I think they're supposed to represent the people. So if I were to be elected under Robert's Rules of Orders, I would ask for us to have the open dialogue where we go, you know, this is my opinion. What do you think, trustee 2, trustee 3, trustee 4, obviously whatever their name is appropriately, so that people can hear our perspective and opinion, because they may have a great idea or perspective that I have not considered. Once again, I don't claim to have every good answer or the best idea all the time, but I've learned to try and recognize the best one in the room. And then we have to, is it legal? Does it meet requirements? Does it reflect the community values? All those things that we as trustees would be required to do. Let's have the deliberation. The other thing is the voting. It's been unanimous, I think over 600 and counting, back to almost the Robert E. Lee decision, if I remember correctly, exactly. But I love my wife, and she's probably going to kill me for saying this, but like, we don't agree all the time, even in any given day. It's surprising to me that there's been 0 dissenting voices. And when we went to the trustee and training thing back on February 19th, I suggest everybody watch. It was interesting hearing some of the comments from the trustees and superintendent. And they're like, you have to leave your personal views at the door, which I don't agree with. And that, you have to vote for the whole district. And I would disagree with that assessment. This is a single member district. My job is to represent the people that are in the Reagan cluster. There are the people that represent Churchill, Roosevelt, Madison, MacArthur, Johnson, Lee, Robert E. Lee, as people know. So they need to bring that perspective to the table, because there may be certain district issue or certain local issues that may not affect certain schools, but others. We need to consider all that, because once again, it's one consolidated budget, all those things. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to have the same issues, concerns, or comments from the parents and community where I live, represent, as people will in other parts of the district. So
that's right. They are single member districts. That's true. And so what can residents of your district, District 6, the Reagan cluster area, what can those residents expect if you are elected?
The biggest thing for me would be, one, open communication. I want to hear early and often. I will get back to you when I can. There's currently a stipulation in the superintendent contract, which I have issues 4.1, that says anything I receive, if I were a trustee, I'm required to share with the superintendent, which, going back to the hierarchy, doesn't make sense to me. He's a subordinate, non-elected official. I believe it contravenes the statutory authority of a publicly elected official that I would have to report everything. Having said it, is a lot of the technical issues or certain things I would rely on the district staff, because they're the day-to-day folks that run the district, and they have the ability to quickly get information. But it doesn't mean that I have to all the time do that. So that's one of the many things I would like to address if I were able to, and I got on the board. But the biggest thing with the community members is the communication. That goes back to a quarterly newsletter going out saying, here's what we're working on, here's what's coming up. Please come to the meetings. The regular meetings, if you ever watch them, very few people ever show up, and that's where your voice can be heard. So I would want parents to be proactive. I want to represent you. In order to represent you, I have to know your ideas. I have a group of friends and other people that we see through activities in school. The other thing you'll get from me as well is I believe in walk and talk tours on campus. Go and visit every single campus in the district, talk to the principals. I want to know what 3 things you're doing well, keep doing them. What 3 things are a challenge at the campus level that could be improved upon? And I don't claim to have all the answers. They're the experts. Same thing as I'd like to get in the cafeteria with all the teachers from elementary school and the cluster. Same with the middle school, and then obviously Reagan High School. No principals, no district staff, and say, what can y'all do so that I know what the teachers need, the district, and then I can go to the parents and say, parents, does this line up? Because there's going to be some disparity sometimes. You have to find that balancing act of how do we make sure the parents, who are the client, you, the parents, are the primary customer of the school system, how we're meeting the needs of your community within reason. We can't give everybody everything. That goes back to making tough decisions sometimes, but it needs to be consistent, reasoned, and be able to explain why we're doing what we're doing. And parents we owe them that honest communication. There was a calendar change a couple months back that they said, well, we're doing it for the kiddos. We're adding 3 half days, 1 in October, 1 in January, and 1 next May. And it was going to support the COVID slide. Now, common sense tells me that you're not 4 half days are not going to make up for the kid education. But by doing 3 extra days, 177 to 180 day calendar, happened June 8th. I spoke at that meeting. The district gets more money. I wish they would have just come out and said, by doing this, we get more money for the district. It doesn't impact our teacher work rules, schedule, and our kids. To me, that's just basic integrity and honesty. Saying it's for the kiddos and because of the COVID slide, to me, that was disingenuous. So I would say, hey, we're doing this because we need revenue. And this is how we can get revenue from the state and get a little more education.
Plus, on this.
Yeah, I mean,
we want to be transparent with you.
Yeah, well, that's that transparency thing. So, I mean, the biggest thing is open dialogue and transparency, which goes back to the board meetings and notes getting on the front end. So you get feedback. Same thing as the phasing plan should have been out 2 or 3 weeks prior, should have been pushed to all the emails. They have all of our emails, community, and say, here's what we're proposing, give us our feedback. And once again, you're always going to have a wide range of you, but you need to get the big ideas and trying to get consensus that what's going to work. And there's no perfect plan. Realize it's a very tough situation. So I don't want to overly pick on this particular thing, but it's the process that I think is the problem, not necessarily, what they presented a plan. Everyone can debate that, but it was the process of how they got there that concerns me more than anything. And this COVID stuff will be gone, but what are the processes going forward for the next 3, 4, 6, 8, 10 years? Strategic planning, strategic thinking, I think, is lacking sometimes.
Very good. And so you've been through it again, but just to make sure we cover it, go over the area of your district again. My start with you can go either way, elementary school, middle schools, up to high school. Or
yeah, so Reagan High School is the primary. 2 middle schools, Bush and Lopez. The elementaries up in the northernmost area, Tuscany Heights, Hardy Oak, Wilderness Oak, Canyon Ridge, Stone Oak, Las Lomas, Vineyard Ranch, and then just south of 1604 is Hidden Forest, which actually later on will feed into Churchill High School. But those are the schools that are covered in the District 6 single member district.
Very good. So go back to some policy issues and get involved in who you are and not necessarily leaving your values at the door, as was suggested to you at the February candidate meeting. But so a very basic question: are you pro-life?
Yes.
And how would you describe that?
I'm a practicing Catholic in all that it entails. I believe it's important that we have to live our life accordingly to our belief system. And that is just part of who I am and part of the decision-making process that is involved for me in how I live my life and make decision-making processes I go.
Okay, very good. And do you recognize an inherent conflict of interest with abortion businesses and providers and their affiliates providing sex education curriculum and instruction to public school students?
Yes, there's a strong concern, and the current middle school sex ed curriculum, sexuality curriculum, called Draw the Line, Respect the Line, is written by ETR, which has direct ties to Planned Parenthood out of Santa Cruz, California. There's a much bigger story there, but that is a concern because it appears as though the Texas Education Code is very clear, 28004E, there's 5 components that must be met, referencing abstinence, more devotion, more time spent on certain things, and I don't believe that curriculum meets it. So yes, there is a significant concern that the curriculum being used and having ties to certain organizations is not good. More importantly, the curriculum is optional. The board gets to decide. It's a local decision, but they don't even have to teach sex ed in middle school. It's up to the board, and then they also get to choose a curriculum. But that's a concern. We need to get kids focused on reading, writing, and arithmetic, passing all bases. When we get all those basic standards up and everybody is meeting their max potential, college readiness, vocational jobs, there's so much time and energy we can focus on the stuff that is important in public education, but a lot of energy is devoted by the district defending and justifying this policy, and they have for the last 4 years. And it's a concern to me that maybe we need to relook what we're doing and why we're doing it. Of interesting note, this spring, when everybody went home and they canceled school or closed school because of the COVID, they didn't teach the sexuality curriculum because it was too sensitive. It was on the district website under Health and PE if you want to go look it up. So that was a blessing in disguise, I think, because 10,000 middle school kids approximately didn't receive that this year, 7th and 8th graders. They just updated the website about 4 or 5 days ago because I've been watching this. And now in the fall, they're not going to teach the sex ed curriculum because they can't guarantee who may or may not see it. So it's very interesting to me that's going on. There's been people who've been vocal in trying to get this changed, and I will offer that. I had a level 4 grievance, which is public knowledge, and go see on 31 August. I had it held in public session. So yes, it's a concern.
And so the question is, if it's so sensitive, it can be shown in a classroom, but it can't be shown at a board meeting?
Not only that, it can't be shown with the parents sitting at home. So we're the primary educators, and we're supposed to be full partners according to Texas Education Code, Chapter 26, another fun read, and Texas Family Code 151. There are certain responsibilities, rights and responsibilities of parents. We're the primary educators. I found it very interesting that they didn't want parents seeing with it, which part of the concern is most parents trust the district. The parent previews mention the word abstinence, and it's on the back cover of each of the workbooks, but very sparsely in between. And so that is very interesting word choice that they said it was too sensitive in nature to share with the parents. I think it was more of a concern if parents saw what was really in there would be an uproar. And that's why.
Okay. Interesting.
Speculation on my part, though. I can't guarantee that. I'm not sure.
So being that Texas Education Code 20004 says that sexual education curriculum is optional for the school district, will you support sexual risk avoidance, absence-based programs, or sexual risk reduction programs, and how the school district would handle that?
Well, I'll answer that question, but more importantly is I don't think it's something we need to be teaching at school. Like I said, there's limited instructional minutes and hours. And you now have a stranger, trusted teacher and teachers, and I don't want the teachers get this wrong. And I know they're all trying to do their best with this, but they are somebody that's not the primary guardian of those children is introducing this information in terms and stuff. And once again, most parents are trusting, but they don't know what these kids are taught, and the kids show up and think mom and dad, grandma, whoever the guardian wants them to be there. Such a huge issue. I don't think we should be teaching this at all. This goes with the family, and family values need to be taught. I would be for the abstinence, is what I would go for. I'd prefer the abstinence only, not the abstinence plus. Is that your question?
Yes.
I think you used two different terms, but I'm not sure I'm answering your question.
And the abstinence plus being?
The draw the line, respect the line, the ones that are usually run by people like affiliations to Planned Parenthood.
Right.
Does that clarify that?
It does.
Okay.
It does. So what's your opinion of independent school districts, in this case Northeast ISD, teaching lifestyle choices in school?
Once again, we need to focus on the fundamentals. And it's all about, to me, focusing on the fundamentals. Let's get all of our kids up to grade level in the reading, the writing, the math, social studies, science, histories. We need to focus on that stuff. We don't need to be focusing on the lifestyle choices, quite frankly. There are resources for individuals. They have issues, of course. There are counselors and other resources out there. And I think it's important to have resources in place for that needed, but to be forcing all of these different perspectives on individual children, I don't think is the place of the public school system.
Okay. Very good. So even though this is a nonpartisan election, all the school boards are, how would you describe yourself personally and politically?
Personally, I'm private. I would offer that I'm very conservative. Big fan of the Constitution of the United States and freedom. And I would say that from there, you can probably figure out the rest of the stuff. It is a nonpartisan race, but I am very conservative and I'm up for individual freedoms and liberties. And I want everybody else to have those same freedoms and liberties. We just have to work to preserve it. As they often said, many of the founders of the Constitution, we have to work to preserve that every day.
That's right. I appreciate you pointing to the Constitution, and you had a career of upholding the Constitution.
Trying to.
Thank you for doing that.
Sure.
So we have some other issues that we want to talk about. How do you feel about these following issues? Because of COVID-19 with virtual classrooms, even though some students are going back, I think they're phased in Northeast ISD this week. How do you feel about virtual classroom learning?
It's generally speaking suboptimal for the vast majority of students. There are certain families that like it. I think it's important that due to the health concerns that some have, that is an option. But I think it's very hard on the teachers. From my understanding, the teachers only got asked just a day or two prior to the phase-in plan about their input. It'd be interesting, once again, being proactive. We have some friends who are teachers, and they always think the parents know more than the teachers. And then we always think the teachers know more than the parents. It's quite an interesting dialogue, and we're like, no, we don't know. No, what do you hear? What do you hear? So I think that it's very important that the social and emotional component that I hear the district talk about a lot, being in class with your friends, being able to do whatever activity is, whether it's band, a sport activity, or fine art, whatever those are all things that develop life skills and build character, and that's part of growing up and maturing. Sitting on a virtual computer 8 hours a day is bad for our children, in my opinion. Once again, for some, that is the option that needs to be had for a short period, but it's suboptimal, and it should have been vetted earlier, in my opinion. So we have better input. Up in other districts, they're matching virtual with virtual and in-person with in-person with a limit to no restriction. Right now, phase in, I don't know if people realize this, but from what we were told is a student, one of our children, goes sits in a classroom with a teacher, and they're on the computer Zoom, but they're not necessarily with their same teacher. I just talked to one of our friends yesterday, a middle schooler. They're in one teacher's classroom, but it's not their teachers for any of their subjects. They're sitting there in Zoom, versus that. So they're not even really getting the in-person learning. They're at school, but they're basically virtual, so for 8 hours a day. If you look at the Northeast Facebook page, there were complaints about the kids not being able to go to PE during the PE hour and stuff. I think the district is correcting them, but it goes back to plans should have been vetted earlier. Lots of parents with lots of backgrounds who are smart who would have said the kind of the what if game before they did it. What about this? What about this? So the plan could have been probably improved in a better execution phase in implementation. But the virtual learning, generally, I think it's bad. I think there's been reports from the CDC that teen suicide, depression, and drug use have all skyrocketed. So those are huge concerns for society. I mean, this is a generation. What are we teaching them, and what are they missing out on? I feel especially bad for think about seniors in high school. This is their senior year, just like last year in the spring. Obviously, that was really weird. But now, there's all this stuff is quickly doing this. So it's a great concern, the virtual learning. It's good to have it, much better than the spring. I will give the district credit for that. It definitely is much improved. Obviously, the teachers had time, and I know the teachers, they're doing great. So all you teachers out there, thank you. I know it's super hard what y'all are doing. So y'all are handling the tough situation very well from what we've watched and seen watching virtually. Thank you.
And we have some many teachers that are friends who are teachers in the NEISD as well, and on special ed and go to people's homes and everything because they're special English learning and how difficult it is, how time consuming and working harder than ever.
They're working probably twice as hard to keep up with that and the technology. And now, in between, one of our friends we talked to, they're having to do virtual and the live because at the elementary level, sometimes they have the same kids. So they're like, okay, and one's, so they're doing great, and it's a very tough time. Hopefully we can get back to the old normal sooner than later so that everybody you can see that smile. I mean, one of our teachers said, you can tell kids by the smile on their face, that light, you can see if they're getting concepts and not by having the face covered. It's very hard for them to see if the kids are grasping it as much, even for those few that they might be in online. It gets so much harder because like right now, the distance is but they're doing great. So once again, thank you to all the teachers, campus administrators. I know y'all are working hard to try and make the best of this situation.
See that light bulb go on, that they connected something. That's great.
Yeah, or the scratch of the head going, oh, this isn't sinking in. I need more time with that individual child.
Yeah. So should schools be allowed, or should students be allowed to have prayer in school?
Yes, they currently are allowed. It's the minute of silence, which was interesting because as we were talking beforehand, in some of the schools in Northeast, they have not been saying the Pledge of Allegiance and the minute of silence, which is required by Texas Education Code 25002, the district EC policy, and the student parent handbook for all you parents, page 79, if you really want to see it, the first period of the day. That's good. I'm sorry. I like to go dig into the regulations to make sure that when I'm speaking stuff that I have facts and reason, not just what I feel, but what I can think and show people and prove. And so for 2 weeks, I was going back and forth with some campus administrators, and we finally gotten it, but I mean, it's a requirement by the law. And I think it's value that minute of silence where for those that are of faith can thank the Lord for the day, for the gifts they have, for their teachers, for the opportunity to learn, for whatever it is that may be in their heart and mind. I think it's important, and we have to continue to remember the founding of this nation and what we're all about, and the free exercise of religion.
Reagan. How about parental access to all learning materials? You addressed this a little bit with the previous topic, but what about parental access to all learning materials shown to children?
Absolutely. It's in actual Texas Education Code that you have full right to all of it. Obviously, you can't get a test before the test, but you can see anything about your children, their records, any of their materials has to be reasonably available and readily available at each of the campuses. You just have to coordinate with the administrators. Some things are electronic or there's a limited number of them, but absolutely 100%, because we need to know what's being taught to our children. And once again, it's our job, or we as parents are more than just showing up for the PTA and making sure the homework's done. We have to be proactive. So part of that ownership has to be on the parents as well, not all in the district. But the parents have to be engaged. And I think one advantage of the COVID is everybody got to slow down a little bit from all the activities we all tend to run to because, giving our children opportunities, but being engaged, knowing what they're learning, seeing the tests and quizzes, and is looking at what's being asked. So yes, absolutely access to it. And I would encourage parents to actually utilize that and go get it. And don't feel bad. Remember who the client is. You're the client. In the educational marketplace, the district works for us, the parents and the community members. And I think everyone feels bad because they feel like they're a burden on the school. It should be quite the opposite. Full partners and collaborators. I think the teachers and the district staff, the campus admin, should and would love to have more parents up there involved, more than just the PTA. PTA is great, don't get me wrong, I'm a member. But that individual engagement and going, hey, dad, because then you can help, you know your child better than anybody. And you may know where they're struggling or not. And then you can help leverage what's being taught at school and kind of synthesize the on-campus learning with at home, integrating your family values, and then understanding the educational hierarchy. This summer, we did some Constitution 101 with my daughter, talking about why it's so important and understanding all this stuff. Some of it they didn't kind of look at me funny, but you have to be involved in that foundational piece. So absolutely access to all the information.
Very good. How about pre-K for SA? It's on the ballot as well as on November 3rd up for renewal vote after 8 years of existence.
Yes. So interesting to me, the Northeast has a legislative agenda they publish each year. So they are against charter schools. That's their legislative agenda. They want to be able to choose charter schools within the district boundaries for competition. Yet they support pre-K for SA, which is a charter school. So for me, once again, as a trustee, I would ask, how do we reconcile the two different perspectives? You know, and I would ask the trustees first, saying this is the trustees' legislative agenda, saying we're not charter schools, we don't limit them, but we have pre-K for SA through the district. Once again, it comes back to funding, I believe. So I think each child should have learning opportunities, educational opportunities. We paid for our child. We lived in a different state for the opportunity. But the pre-K for SA, you have to be careful because now, I understand there was 4 originally, and they were paid, and there was a picking process that's spread out. So I have certain concerns with how it's being administered. And once again, is it fair and equitable to everybody involved? Because these are taxpayer resources we're using again. I am a big fan, though, of the kids. That's part of that social development, part of learning, part of educating. So that is good. The other question I would ask, and I don't think anyone's asked recently, is, so we've had 8 years of this, right? So we should have the data from those pre-Ks that started the first year or two. How did they do in the 5th grade standardized testing, the STAR testing, and even the 8th grade? Have we seen different results? And then you also have to ask, is it because of the parental involvement level or not involvement? But if they came from the same area, same socioeconomic standard, I would say, for lack of a better term, start off, is that you're even getting the value for the money you're spending for those that are in it? So there's a lot of questions. I'd have to probably do more research to do that. I'm inclined to say I personally probably would not right now, but I actually do more research on that. Once again, I don't have all the answers, and that one I need to look a little closer before the vote.
Oh, that's good advice. The Texas legislature passed Texas pre-K for last legislative session, and now you have an overlap. Perceivably, at least if not realistically and practically, an overlap between Texas pre-K 4 and pre-K for SA. What are your thoughts on that?
That's where you have to be smart. It's strategic planning, and also that constant, like I talked about, every 3 or 4 years reevaluate policies. So this is one that we need to look at and go, once again, we have limited educational hours and limited resources, right? The district is always worried about finances, and rightfully so. They're spending our taxpayer money. So what is the best use? There's constraints and restraints. And when you're looking at it and you're making decisions, you have to make tough decisions. If there's going to be an overlap, where do we not have to spend the money while still providing certain resources that if we're able to provide? So that's where you have to look at that and do that balancing. I'm not familiar with the numbers associated with that, so I can't give you a better answer than that. But they need to do let's do the objective fact-based analysis and figure out where it is, and do we need to do this, and why or why not supporting that particular issue. There's going to be an overlap.
It is interesting because I know in the first full year after pre-K for SA had been passed, they had issued checks out to different school districts, and Northeast ISD school district got a $900,000 check. So back to the money comment, charter schools like Great Hearts or Basis probably aren't paying NEISD a check, sending them a check over each year, and so the distinction in legislative agenda.
Right.
That's something I think bring it up because voters need to be educated on that.
Right.
Taxpayers need to be educated on that, and they deserve to have that information.
Right, and that's to me the transparency. And if that's where they don't even say, once again, just say, hey, we're supporting this because this is a piece of charter because it brings in funding for us and we have room on the campuses. But be transparent about it versus just saying, well, we don't want charter schools yet. You do in this case because it financially helps the district out. So once again, it's just that consistency, transparency, and then being honest with why we're doing it. Because to me, those are two conflicting pieces, and that I don't understand that conflict, and it needs to be debated, deliberated, and then resolved. I mean, even put in legislative, we don't want charter schools above pre-K level, but the pre-K works because there is an economic incentive and doesn't impact the rest of our K through 12 processes where the charter school would be, like you mentioned, a basis or a grade.
Amazing to have candor. What comes up from our government entities. So let's talk. I want to be as charitable as possible here. But I do want to discuss this. The camera here. I want to make sure to get as good a picture as possible of Mr. Hilliard. Let's talk about your opponent.
There's two opponents actually in District 6. The incumbent is Mr. Hasso. He's currently on the Board of Trustees. It has been for the last, I think, about 3.5 years. And then there's Mr. Parisi is also running. He's on the ballot as well. I'll be number 2 on the ballot, just in the order of 3 names, in case you're wondering. I don't know Mr. Hasso personally. Mr. Parisi I met at that orientation. We spoke briefly. So I don't know. I have nothing negative to say. And once again, you take each person and each individual you meet. So I think, once again, Mr. Hasso is doing what he thinks is right, probably. My big concern is that culture on the board I've talked about, which is the unanimous voting all the time, the practically no deliberation, and the lack of questioning. I wish that there would be more vigor in the questioning. I would ask any of the trustees, not just Mr. Hasso. He is my representative. He was responsive. I had an issue with the 180 calendar one day. I was trying to get more information, and he was quick to respond, as was one of the senior campus folks. So I appreciated that. And that's the type of responsiveness that you ask for, and you realize the trustees have other jobs, so that they can only respond so fast, but he was responsive. And I appreciate that. And that's what you hope the trustees are consistently doing with the parents and the constituents, especially when they express concern about a board meeting item. So that's all. I don't know. I just know what I think I can bring to me, which is what I've tried to express today, as far as the executive experience, willingness to ask hard questions, and starting with the children, parents, teachers, and then obviously underlying the taxpayers and that accountability is what I think I can bring to the board.
And to your knowledge, Mr. Hasso is the incumbent. Has he made any dissenting votes since he's been on?
Not that I'm aware of. I believe the last dissenting votes were before his term started, but I don't know that to be 100% correct. I'd have to go look that up. So I do not know.
So a good question to ask. We will certainly do that if Mr. Hasso joins us in a one-on-one interview as well. And appreciate you sharing that. So what are some things you really like about Northeast ISD?
I love the opportunities that are presented, and I mean the variety of them. Every child, we want to see the maximum potential. Every day, we want to challenge the children. Every day, challenging the children to meet their potential. The district provides so many opportunities based on different skill sets. Everything from the traditional sports and fine arts, band, theater, choir. They also do the VOTEC. They do a whole VOTEC center, which some people know about, some people don't. They provide lots of opportunities. They have a strong ROTC program. When I went to high school here, our high school was one of the top ROTC programs back even then. So I think there's a lot of great things Northeast does. They have great parents, a lot of involved parents that want the best for the district. And we have a lot of great teachers and administrators and overall folks that I think, once again, are trying to do the right things. Sometimes I think things get lost, but there's so many opportunities here. And like I said, we chose to move here over a couple other districts when we were returning home because of the great experience both my wife and I had, as well as a lot of our family and friends that we still talk to. When we came back, there's still a lot of strong stuff, but we have to continue to challenge the district, the staff, everybody, the parents included, to continue that improvement so we don't slide down. You can't live on your reputation from 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. You have to continually work to maintain it and improve it. You can't just go, oh, last year we won the Super Bowl. We're going to be Super Bowl champs again this year. It's not how it works. You have to put in the work every day. You can't just go, oh, look at us, we're great. There is a lot of greatness here, and there's a lot of potential to be that much better. That's what I want to see, that true excellence at the next level. Once again, so a lot of good stuff. We're very happy to be here. Love our teachers, love most things about the district. So I don't want to think I'm a positive person by nature, but I also want to strive for excellence. And that means putting in the work, asking tough questions.
Brilliant. And you covered this a little bit, but maybe you want to identify 1, 2, or 3 areas that you'd like to see a definite improving in the Northeast ISD.
All right, transparency is huge. For me, that's big, and that's that proactive communication beyond the trustees and the superintendent and senior staff. That is transparency because this is a public trust institution, and the client is the Northeast community and parents. So we need to be proactive at telling them what's going on and pushing the information to them. With electronic stuff, it's very easy to do, get out the word to the vast majority. So that they know what's going on, and then those that are inclined and want to get engaged and come up and speak at a board meeting or send an email to their trustee, they can do that. They know how to do it. It's a very cumbersome process right now, and it's not, it doesn't appear to me to be very parent friendly sometimes. So that transparency is huge. The strategic communication, which is tied to that transparency, is I think the district can do much better. They do certain things with like the media and talking to each other, but I don't think that proactive engagement with parents and the teachers for that matter sometimes on campus are there. It's where the best ideas are. I mean, let's go down to where the ideas are and let's get the best of them. You got to vet through them, and you're going to hear some complaints, and that's part of the gig. But really think about it and then get the perspectives, which is where that deliberation with the other trustees. So I want to encourage that robust conversation and representing the parents is a big thing. But ultimately, remember, it's about the children. I mean, I'm a dad. It is about putting our children first. Every decision we make should be, how does this help our children? Is it supporting what the parents want? And, you know, helping the teachers and the campus administrators having the resources they need to do that. And then we have to get value for the taxpayer money. So kind of four there on top of that.
Okay. You mentioned something about getting back to the basics on reading, writing, and arithmetic. That get school performance back up. Are there some schools that are not performing?
There's a variation across the district. And you're going to have that in any large organization. You will have performance deviations that would offer. But then, so once again, is don't keep talking about the good stuff. And I say this, let's focus on the problem. We know there are one or two failing elementary schools. So my question is, what are we digging in? And if I was a trustee, particularly in that failing school, I would be asking lots of questions of the campus staff through the superintendent, the senior staff going, are they failing? What is the problem? Let's identify the big rocks, the big problem, and then what are we doing to fix them? And it's not going to be flip a switch every time. Some fixes take weeks and months, but you have to identify the problem and be willing to say there is a problem so that we can then go after it and bring it out. Once again, we want every child to meet their maximum potential, whatever their God-given ability is, and everyone has different abilities, right? Not everyone's going to go on to college. We're going to have some that are going to do the VOTEC route. We're going to have some that are going to do a military route. All great opportunities, but we need to get them ready for whatever their path is. But we have to give them those opportunities. So got to go down, find where the problems are, and let's start doing the hard work. And it's uncomfortable. Nobody likes to, you know, they always say praise in public, punish in private. That was a big military thing we didn't try and talk about. But at some point, you also have to have enough transparency to admit that we do have a problem. And I think that's really important to say, hey, here's the problem areas, and this is how we're going after it. And that goes back to the transparency and the communication. Hey, parents at school X, Y, and Z, we're not doing as well as we like now. Here's how we fix it. You know, and depending on what the problem is, they go after it based on what resources are needed.
Okay, very good. So you mentioned this at the beginning of this, but I want to give it to them again. If you would go through the resources you have available for voters to get more information about you, especially obviously in District 6, okay. and share that.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. RobertStevenHilliard. Sorry if you get www.stevefortrustee.com. My website. There's some little short videos and some thoughts, perspective on me and why I'm running. Also at Facebook, Steve for Trustee. And then on my website, you'll see a link to my email, RobertStevenHilliard. Stephen with a V and Hilliard is 2 I's, 2 L's, at gmail.com. Those are all the ways you can contact me and then see what I'm about, why I'm running. Please, please, please. Share with your friends, family, neighbors, be involved, be that proactive parent and community member. We're called on to do that. Don't forget that you got to register to vote. If you're not already registered, check that. It's easy to do on the Bear County voting website. And then please vote Robert Steve Hilliard on, well, as soon as October 13th, just over, actually about a month from now, all the way through November 3rd is the primary. I'll be the second person in the District 6 Northeast ISD single woman district. So I don't know if there's more to go. If I should
Second person on that.
Yeah, I would say that's very good. So I would go back to any last thoughts you want to share with voters that you want them to know about you.
No, well, yeah, I do actually. So this is the backside of that little card. And it was a question. How much do you know about your school board? A year ago, I didn't. This year, I'm running. I will be that strong voice for the children, parents, teachers, and the taxpayers. And there's a lot more that goes into it. I don't claim to have all of the answers, but I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to do the hard work, and willing to represent the members of District 6 to the best of my abilities, consistently, fairly, and thoughtfully, if you were to select me and vote for me to be your trustee.
Excellent. Well, so let's want to thank you again, Shane, for coming in. And on behalf of the San Antonio Family Association, in an attempt to educate voters, I want to appreciate, thank you for coming in and joining us and sharing with all the voters and the taxpayers about yourself. And then each of you for watching. This is our fourth in the series of educational pieces on Northeast Independent School District, the school board election. And hopefully we'll have 7 more. We've extended an invitation to all candidates running for school board or board of trustees for Northeast ISD. That election is taking place on November 3rd. Early voting, as Steve mentioned, starts on October 13th. So it's just a month away, although election day itself is 49 days away. And this is a nonpartisan election, and which means there's no Republican or Democrat or independent. And in the state of Texas, it'll be the first time on the ballot. There's no voting straight party ticket anyway. You have to vote per election and per race, come all the way down. And so the president at the top, school board will be way at the bottom. So it's going to be worth it, though, for the protection of Texas children. And we appreciate you taking the time to do that and educate your friends, family, and neighbors to do that as well. So we'd like to close in prayer for our country. And a little longer prayer, but it's a prayer that's very good for our country, our state, our county and city, and especially in this case for Northeast Independent School District. And as we go forward, to make sure that we want what's truly best for people, individuals, and the common good. God our Father, giver of life, we entrust the United States of America, the state of Texas, Bexar County, and the city of St. Anthony to your loving care. You are the rock on which this nation was founded. You alone are the true source of our cherished rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Reclaim this land for your glory and dwell among your people. Send your spirit to touch the hearts of our nation's leaders with an intense desire to fulfill the responsibilities that protect individuals, marriages, families, and long-term domestic prosperity. Open our public officials' minds and all people who live in America to the inestimable worth of human life and to the responsibilities that accompany human freedom. Remind your people that true happiness is rooted in seeking and doing your will. Through the intercession of your Holy Spirit, grant us the courage to reject the culture of death, indifference, communism and socialism, egalitarianism and environmentalism and totalitarianism, and bless us with the desire, strength, and fortitude to be courageous conduits to help bring about a new culture of life, freedom, responsibility, marriage, and family. We ask for your divine assistance to help us be and remain faithful to you, and for our collective petitions through your Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. And we will be having another candidate interview, one-on-one, get to know the candidate soon. So please watch our Facebook, San Antonio Family Association, or on Twitter, Safe of Family, Instagram, San Antonio Family Association, as well as YouTube, San Antonio Family Association, and our website, sanantoniofamilyassociation.com. And so for the most part, we have that pretty consistent, except when it comes to Twitter. And but it's a little different with each one. So as we couldn't say thank you enough to RobertStevenHilliard, Steve Hilliard, on for your energy and enthusiasm. If all candidates are as energetic, enthusiastic, and willing to dive deep and get into the nitty-gritty of the Texas Education Code, the Board of Trustees bylaws, all for the benefit of the individual students, the taxpayers, and parents and teachers, we would fare better and far better than the status quo. So thank you for your energy and enthusiasm, and thank you for your desire to do that, and knowledge that will serve all of us beneficially, no matter what happens with the election, whether you help on the board itself or help as a parent on a go-forward basis. That's fantastic knowledge, energy, enthusiasm. So without further ado, thank you very much for watching us. On behalf of the San Antonio Family Association, I'm Patrick Gondolin. May God bless you.